South Korea, the country that rose from ashes to lead the world. They had nothing. No food, no money, no freedom. But somehow, they rose from the ashes. And today, they lead the world in music, tech, and fashion. How did Korea do it? How did a small country, torn apart by war and poverty, become a global giant in just a few decades? This story is not just about a country. It's about resilience, pride, and the power of never giving up. So if you've ever felt behind in life, you need to hear this. Because the story of Korea might change the way you see your own struggles. South Korea was once one of the poorest places on Earth. In the 1950s, after the Korean War, it had no clean water, no electricity, and barely enough food to survive. The land was burned. Families were broken. People were lost. At that time, the world saw South Korea as hopeless. But today, that same country is known for BTS, Squid Game, Samsung, and some of the smartest cities in the world. What happened in between? How did a country with almost nothing build a future that inspires millions around the world? In this video, you'll discover the full story. From ancient times to modern skyscrapers. From heartbreaking war to global fame. And more importantly, you'll see what we can all learn from Korea's incredible journey. Because this is not just history. It's a reminder that change is possible, even when everything feels impossible. Korea before it was. Korea. Long before skyscrapers and smartphones, Korea was a land of kings, warriors, and wisdom. Over 2,000 years ago, 3 powerful kingdoms ruled the land: Goguryeo, Baekje, and Silla. Each kingdom had its own style, language, and ideas, but they all shared one heart: the Korean spirit. This was a time of castles, armor, and ancient poetry. Silla, the smallest kingdom, did something no one expected. They formed smart alliances and unified the entire peninsula under one rule. For the first time, Korea was one. But Korea wasn't just strong in war. It was rich in ideas and culture. One of the greatest treasures of Korea's history is Hangul, the Korean alphabet. In the 1400s, King Sejong created Hangul to help ordinary people read and write. Before that, only rich people or scholars could understand Chinese characters. 1 all H 5. It was simple, powerful, and beautiful. Even today, people around the world admire it for being one of the easiest alphabets to learn. Korean traditions also run deep. Kimchi, a spicy fermented dish, has been part of every meal for centuries. Hanbok, the traditional dress, shows grace and color in every thread. Confucian ideas taught respect for elders, love for family, and the importance of education. Even in ancient times, Koreans believed learning could shape your future. So before the world knew anything about Korea, the country already knew who it was. Proud, resilient, wise. But everything would change when outsiders came to take control. The pain of occupation. In 1910, Korea lost its freedom. Japan took control of the country and ruled it for 35 years. This time was one of deep pain and silence. Korean language was banned in schools. Children were forced to speak Japanese. Books, newspapers, even names had to be changed. Many Koreans were sent to work as forced laborers in factories or mines. Others were taken far from home and never came back. It was not just physical control. It was an attempt to erase Korean identity. But even in darkness, people resisted. Secret schools taught Hangul. Poets and writers hid messages of hope in their work. And in 1909, something powerful happened. On March 1st, thousands of Koreans marched peacefully in the streets, demanding independence. the Japanese cracked down hard. But the March 1st movement became a symbol, a spark that told the world, Koreans have not given up. They never stopped believing in freedom. This spirit of resistance lasted through the years, even if it meant prison, exile, or death. Many chose to fight for their country's future. And in 1945, after Japan lost World War II, Korea was finally free again. But their celebration didn't last long, because a new problem was waiting and it would split the country in two. The Korean War, a country torn in two. After World War II, Korea was free, but divided. The Soviet Union controlled the North. The United States took charge of the South. At first, people thought the division was temporary. But in 1950, everything exploded. North Korea invaded South Korea. Tanks rolled in, cities burned, families ran for their lives. This was the start of the Korean War. It lasted for 3 brutal years. More than 2 million people died. Many were innocent civilians, children, mothers, grandparents. Brothers fought against brothers. Villages were destroyed. Hunger spread like wildfire. The United Nations, led by the US, joined the South. China helped the North. Soon, the war became an international disaster. Fighting went up and down the peninsula. No side truly won. In 1953, they signed a truce, but peace was never declared. Even today, North and South Korea are still at war on paper. The country was split by a line, the 38th parallel. Families were separated, letters stopped, phones didn't work, no visits, no goodbyes. South Korea was left in ruins, no economy, no homes, no clean water, just pain and silence. Many people thought Korea would never rise again. But they were wrong. Because from that broken land, something unthinkable was about to begin. Rebuilding from nothing. In the 1950s, South Korea was one of the poorest places on the planet. Most people lived in small huts, cooked with firewood, and had no running water. The war had left schools in ashes, bridges broken, and farms destroyed. Jobs were few, and food was even less. Some children walked miles just to get one bowl of rice. Foreign aid helped a little. America sent money, food, and supplies. But that was not enough to rebuild a country. What really changed Korea was the spirit of its people. They worked, they studied, they sacrificed. Then came a leader named Park Chung-hee. He was strict, even harsh. But he had one clear goal: to build a stronger Korea. In the 1960s, he started a plan to grow the economy fast. The government focused on factories, roads, and exports. They pushed education hard. They told people to build, save, and work together. At first, it was tough. People worked 12 hours a day, 6 days a week, for very little pay. But slowly, factories grew. South Korea began making clothes, shoes, and radios, and selling them overseas. By the 1970s, things were changing. The streets had buses, schools had books, homes had lights. In just one generation, the country moved from hunger to hope. People began to believe in the future again. And that belief would power one of the fastest transformations in modern history. Miracle on the Han River. The world began calling it a miracle. The miracle on the Han River. That river flows through Seoul, but it also flows through Korea's story of survival. From the 1970s to the 1990s, South Korea went from rice fields to global factories. They built roads, subways, airports, and high-rise apartments. But the real engine behind the miracle was education. Korean parents would do anything to send their kids to school. Even if they had little money, they believed knowledge could change everything. Students studied day and night. Teachers were respected like doctors. At the same time, big companies called Keebles began to rise. These were family-run businesses with names you know today: Samsung, LG, Hyundai, SK. They focused on technology, cars, electronics, and shipbuilding. The government supported them, and in return, they hired millions of workers. Koreans didn't complain about hard work. They saw it as part of the mission: to build a better future, not just for themselves, but for their children. And the world began to notice. In just a few decades, Korea went from aid receiver to aid giver, from poor villages to Olympic stadiums. In 1988, Seoul hosted the Summer Olympics. It was a message to the world: we are not a victim anymore. We are a leader. But while the buildings got taller and the factories got louder, something else was rising, too: a deep desire for freedom. The rise of democracy. For many years, South Korea was growing fast, but freedom was limited. People could not speak against the government. News was controlled, protests were banned. Leaders like Park Chung-hee brought economic growth, but ruled with a strong fist. After he died in 1979, hope for freedom returned. But instead, another military leader took over. His name was Chun Do-won. In 1980, students in the city of Gwangju began to protest. They wanted democracy. The army moved in. The result was a tragedy: hundreds of people were killed. This became known as the Gwangju Uprising. It shocked the country and planted a seed that wouldn't die. For the next few years, students, workers, and citizens kept protesting. They marched in the streets, carried signs, and shouted for change. Even when police beat them or locked them up, they did not stop. Finally, in 1987, the people won. The government agreed to hold free elections. For the first time, Koreans could vote for their president. It was the beginning of real democracy. The power had shifted not to politicians, but to the people. And once they had freedom, they didn't stop there. They used it to create music, stories, and ideas that would touch the whole world. Korean Wave, from local to global. In the 1990s and 2000s, South Korea had a new kind of power. Not military, not economic, but cultural. This was the birth of the Korean Wave, also called Hallyu. It began with dramas. Shows like Winter Sonata spread across Asia. People in Japan, China, and the Philippines were crying, laughing, and falling in love with Korean stories. Then came K-pop. Groups like HOT and BoA opened the door. Then came Super Junior, Girls' Generation, EXO, and eventually BTS and Blackpink. BTS became a global phenomenon. They performed at the United Nations, topped the Billboard charts, and sold out stadiums in the US, Europe, and beyond. But it wasn't just music. Korean films began to shine. In 2020, Parasite made history as the first non-English film to win Best Picture at the Oscars. It wasn't just a movie. It was a message: Korean stories matter. Then came Squid Game, a Netflix series that shocked the world and became the most-watched show ever. Why do people love Korean culture? Because it's emotional, honest, and deeply human. Korean artists tell stories of love, pain, pressure, and dreams, things we all feel. Through music, film, and drama, Korea connected to the world in a new way. They didn't just rebuild their economy, they rebuilt their identity and shared it with everyone. Tech, beauty, and lifestyle domination. Today, when people think of South Korea, they don't just think of K-pop. They think of high-speed internet, futuristic cities, and cutting-edge technology. Seoul, the capital, is one of the most connected cities in the world. It has fast public transport, free Wi-Fi almost everywhere, and smart buildings that light up the night. Korea is also home to some of the biggest tech companies. Samsung makes phones, TVs, and chips used around the world. Hyundai builds cars sold in over 100 countries. LG, SK, Kakao, all part of daily life for millions of people. And then there's beauty. K-beauty is famous for its skincare, innovation, and glowing results. Face masks, serums, and beauty routines from Korea have become a global trend. People trust Korean quality not just in makeup, but in style, music, and tech. Even food is spreading worldwide. Bibimbap, tteokbokki, Korean BBQ. These dishes are now loved in New York, London, and Sydney. It's not just food, it's a feeling, warm, spicy, and full of life. South Korea has become a symbol of modern living. Clean, fast, efficient, and creative. They turned their pain into progress and their culture into power. But even in this success, not everything is perfect. The challenge behind the success. Behind the bright lights and global success, South Korea carries a heavy burden. One of the biggest struggles today is the nation's mental health crisis. In schools, students study from dawn to midnight, chasing high exam scores. At work, long hours, constant competition, and high expectations push many to the edge. Even with money and modern life, peace of mind is hard to find. South Korea has one of the highest suicide rates in developed nations. This isn't because people are weak, but because pressure is everywhere. Society often values achievement more than rest, speed more than silence. Young people especially feel the weight of living up to impossible standards. They ask themselves, am I enough, even if I fail? Parents sacrifice so much to give their children success and comfort. But in that journey, some forget to ask if their children are truly happy. The country built its power through discipline, focus, and non-stop hard work. Now, a new generation is asking if happiness should matter just as much. Another deep scar lies at the border with North Korea, still unresolved. The two Koreas are divided by the most heavily guarded border on Earth. Families remain separated by silence, with no phone calls or letters allowed. There is no mail, no family visits, and only silence between them. Years pass, but many people on both sides still hope to reunite someday. Political tension rises and falls, with threats, talks, and more broken promises. And through it all, the Korean people live with a deep sense of uncertainty. They have come so far, but some wounds still ache in silence. Exploration and development. Today, a quiet revolution is happening inside South Korea. After years of chasing speed and success, many people are now slowing down. Younger generations are asking bigger questions about life, work, and happiness. They no longer want to live only for exams or office deadlines. Instead, they want balance, creativity, purpose, and peace of mind. A growing number of Koreans are choosing different paths. Some leave busy cities to live simple lives in the countryside. Others start small businesses or become digital nomads working from cafes. The idea of success is changing. It's no longer just money or fame. Now, people want freedom, time with family, and a life they actually enjoy. Korean artists, writers, and filmmakers are also pushing new ideas into the world. They explore mental health, identity, love, and social pressure through bold stories. These voices are not afraid to ask hard questions or challenge old systems. They are creating space for healing, not just for Koreans, but for everyone. Technology is playing a big role in this shift too. South Korea is leading the way in green energy, smart homes, and robotics. Young engineers are building AI systems that help with farming and elderly care. Startups are focused on solving real problems, not just making quick profit. Instead of copying others, Korea is now inventing its own future. And in the middle of all this change, one thing remains strong. The Korean spirit, shaped by hardship, powered by hope, keeps moving forward. They are not just surviving anymore. They are redefining what it means to truly live. From broken land to global inspiration. This is the moment where everything changes, not just for Korea, but for the world watching it. A country once buried in war and silence now speaks loudly through its culture, its values, and its vision. In 2018, South Korea hosted the Winter Olympics in Pyeongchang, a powerful symbol of global respect. The event was not just about sports. It was about unity, healing, and showing how far they had come. BTS stood on stage at the United Nations and spoke about self-love and youth empowerment. Parasite won the world's biggest movie award, proving that powerful stories have no language barrier. Korean products, ideas, and voices are now everywhere, in homes, on phones, in hearts. And yet, their success feels different from others. More humble, more personal, more earned. This is not a story of luck or magic. It's a story of people who refused to give up, even when the world gave up on them. From hunger to innovation, from silence to song, from shadows to spotlight. Korea rose, not by following others, but by trusting its own identity, its own rhythm, its own voice. And that is the true miracle, not just economic growth, but emotional strength. The strength to heal, to grow, and to inspire millions through both pain and pride. South Korea's journey is living proof that the human spirit can rebuild anything, even a broken nation. The spirit of Korea. So, what can we learn from Korea? That even in the darkest times, there's always a way forward. That a country can rise, not just through money or machines, but through heart and unity. Korea did not erase its past. It carried it every scar, every tear, every lesson, and used it to shape the future. From ancient kings to modern pop stars, from farmers to engineers, every generation built something. Each one added a stone, a step, a story to the path forward. And now, South Korea stands tall, not perfect, but proud, not finished, but fearless. This is more than a success story. It's a reminder that no matter how far you fall, you can rise again. With purpose, with pride, with the people around you. Anything is possible. That's the spirit of Korea. And maybe that can be the spirit inside you too. If this story moved you, subscribe to the channel and watch the next story now playing on your screen.